Good day, and welcome to another episode of Agent X11, Hollywood Dark Journalist, another light in this darkened world. I'm your host, Penny L.A. Shepherd, and I am Agent X11. My co-hosts are David Zublit, Heather Day, Joan Renee, Skip Press, Chris Montgomery, Terry Bradley, Katie Bradley, Tom Outhouse, Jessica Garza, Howard Lamson, Dr. Keith Pablo, and TJ Ward.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are tonight's entertainment.
Agent X11, Hollywood Dark Journalist, begins now. And welcome to another episode of Agent X11, Hollywood Dark Journalist. My name is Penny L.A. Shepherd, and I am Agent X11. I am joined by my co-hosts, Joan Renee and Terry Bradley, and this is Brian Singh's segment. It's called Brian Singh Presents. And Brian Singh, you said you have a lot to talk about today.
Oh boy.
I do. You cut out for a bit, so if everyone can hear me. Basically, I am in contact with people who knew Isaac Kappy before he was, quote-unquote, suicided on Route 66 in Arizona. And I also now have half of his Dead Man switch that was sent to me, which is very interesting, and I'm happy to share that on here. Yes. Screen share that. Let me see if I could share my screen, and it's pretty wild.
Yeah, I actually knew Brian. I actually knew Kappy.
Okay.
I was supposed to meet with him. It's just showing us in here. I'm looking at it.
Yeah, you have to. I think you have to click on it to let it share.
Well,
and while you're working on
it,
okay, here we go. Now it's going.
Okay.
So this is 115 pages, and apparently it's only half of the Dead Man switch, and then some of it has already been put online, and then it's been erased, and then you can find it through the Wayback Machine. So It starts off with Neil Bush's massive USA pedophile network. He gives his home address. I don't know if I should. We might have to. That might be some personal information up there, but we've got basically a list then of Republican Party pedophiles, and this is all public information, and this has been shared before. And then the list of Democratic pedophiles, and then TomFlacco.com is no longer there, and it's got these articles about how the Israeli AIPAC, American Israeli, it's not Political Action Committee, but it's like I forget what APAC stands for, but it's American Israeli. These guys and gals were basically running an Epstein ring out of these 3 hotels in Washington, D.C., the Watergate, the Ritz-Carlton, and the Sheraton. And this is all linked to former Prime Minister Netanyahu, Mark Rich, and Jack Abramoff. So a lot of people will remember Jack Abramoff, all these probes and investigations, and it seemed like nothing ever went anywhere. What's because they buried it. When you look at all the politicians that are involved in this, they don't, and network news people, they don't want any of this hitting the public. Is basically an addendum to the Epstein files. It's all going together. Then let's see. It says this is on the Wayback Machine. You can find it on the Tom Flacco stuff. Then here are a whole string of articles that are, or links that are, I think, on like a lot of them are at tomhennigan.com, and I believe he is still up. Can we see? I might be messing up that website. Actually, no, I'll pause that. So a lot of these links are dead. So this looks like it's like 115 pages of Isaac's research. And a lot of these names come up. And then now it's getting like Muhammad Atta. So I believe that was like, we got terrorists. Yeah, okay, the connection timed out for that one link. Iraq war connections. Gannon's National Press Club. So here's this guy, Gannon. He talks about Mark Rich, and then Mark Rich is tied into the whole Belgium sex trafficking and, again, Epstein. Let's see. Yeah, Jeff Gannon. Gannon Gate. So he's done a lot of research here. Let's see. Johnny Gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Because Johnny Gosh is like a boy who apparently went missing, and then he might have been sucked into these pedophile networks.
Mm-hmm.
Iran-Contra affair. So this is page 27 of 115. Franklin Gate. So he's referencing the Franklin cover-up of a lot of, I think it was at the time mostly Republican politicians, and they were having a child pedo ring, PDF ring. So, yep, this is, I'm sharing what was sent to the Camp Caribou, Ontario Catholic ? New clue, and this might be related to Johnny Gosh case, because there's a lot of military abductions and pedophile rings that are linked to the deep state that has infiltrated our military, unfortunately. So, yep, the Franklin scandal. He's talking about like all these like prisons and youth centers that are part of these same networks and rings. Penny, I'll send this to you and anyone else who wants it later on.
Thank you.
While you're going through that, you're mentioning the youth centers. We had a daycare center here in Sacramento that was busted for that very thing, and it was a drop-in center. So when you couldn't get a babysitter or whatever, you could it was drop-in. So if you were desperate, they would take your child for that day, and then they were busted for this very thing. So it's not just out there. It's not just Hollywood. It's not just the government, but they've infiltrated local communities as well.
Right. Here he is talking about false flags. Robert A. Hawkins, Von Mars shootings, evidence disciplinary discrepancies. Why were the FBI and DHS in the mall before the shootings? and maybe these might be like MK Ultra Manchurian candidates. Like you're saying, Joan, maybe they're being picked up through these child supposedly rescue homes, but they're anything but. Then they're going to the homosexual prostitution ring that happened in the Bush Reagan White House.
Yeah. Franklin.
Let's
When I
see.
first moved to California in 1978, I lived in Manhattan Beach in a house. Yeah, excuse me, on North Diantha Street. And right around the corner was the McMartin preschool.
Oof, oof.
Luckily, I didn't
I've
put
heard-
my son in there, but I
No.
found out about it later, and I was a little upset about it. But
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
that was crazy.
That's scary. You're talking right here, Sandusky, Ohio,
Oh, yeah.
Penn State. And so basically the upshot of all this for our audience is that we're seeing, you can look at each of these individual cases of pedophilia or sexual abuse and harassment. But the fact of the matter is that so many of them, the vast majority, they're all connected. And then not only are they connected, none of this is what we would call garden variety PDF files and networks and abuse. These are linked to the occult. Okay. Like when we talk about Jimmy Savile and the Rothschilds and the royal family, we know that they're always showing very high level Masonic regalia. Okay. There's images floating around online of the Freemason man boy weddings. There's one at least out there way before AI ever came out. Jimmy Savile was a known monster. I mean, he was so prolific, like everybody, so many people in power knew. And then for people to pretend that they didn't, it's ridiculous. And then he was a Satanist. So he's referencing just all these different conspiracies and links. So needless to say, Isaac came under the targeting of a cyberstalking troll army. Okay. And this cyberstalking troll army, many of these people are the same people who are cyberstalking and harassing myself, and Sarah R. Adams, one of my best friends and close business partners. And they also helped to cyberstalk James Rink and David Wilcock unto their deaths as well as Isaac Kappy. Really. And a lot of them seem to be headed and potentially financed by a gentleman by the name of Gabe Hoffman. And so Isaac Kappy did a lot of, he did a song, Gabe Hoffman is a bad dude. And the reason why is because in 2014, Mr. Hoffman, I'm not on a first name basis with him. Apparently he produced this movie, An Open Secret, which is about pedophilia in Hollywood. But the deal is that Isaac Kappy, he came out and said that the Open Secret was and is what we call a limited hangout. Everyone already knows that Bryan Singer is a PDF file, as well as Steven Spielberg, because all of that's been leaked about, like Heather O'Rourke, for example, from Poltergeist, etc. Here is naming the various infiltrators, and here he is calling out Gabe Hoffman and Ella High Priest. Now, people may be confused because if you were following the Isaac Kappy saga while he was alive, you might have thought, he was friends with this guy. Well, it turns out that he called him out, Ella High, as an infiltrator, potentially sent in by Gabe Hoffman. Okay.
Interesting.
And so once he called out Gabe Hoffman, all of a sudden, all of the people under Gabe, including this group of people, they're known as Kino Casino. Okay. I call them Pedo Casino. because what these guys do is they got this kind of shock jock shtick where what they do is they do videos on they do live videos to an army of a lot of these people. I guess are trolls, or they self-style themselves as like vigilantes. Okay. And what they'll do is they will pick people in, for example, the disclosure community, like David Wilcock, and they'll redo a video of David. They'll replay it in the background, and then while they're playing it, like this guy, they're doing it to this guy named The Quartering, Jerry Hambley. He's an internet personality influencer, who's more on the right, and I believe is probably not supportive of Israel. Anyone who's not supportive of Israel and calls out the Khazarian Mafia gets dubbed as being antiseptic. Okay. And when really it's about the Khazarians, and they're hiding behind a certain supposed genetic lineage when they're not. They're actually Ashkenazi in general, and there's a whole history there. But needless to say, this one guy, Andy Worski, he was sexting a 15-year-old girl. Okay, when he was like in his 20s or I don't know if 30s, but too old to be sexting a 15-year-old. And this guy PPP, he's like gone to rallies and supposedly on the right wing, on behalf of the right wing, to counter protests, say Antifa or BLM, and then he'll moon them and show them their ass, and there's like children around. So these guys protect the pedophiles and go after people who are pointing the finger at the Khazarian Mafia networks. And so and the reason why they're called Kino Casino, I guess apparently in Kino you can go bust or something, and their theme is there's all these crazy people like supposedly David Wilcock, who did some amazing things. Above Majestic, that documentary was amazing. But then when he said, we're going to have the Ascension and the Solar Flash, in 2012, and then again in 2020, and then in 2025, he obviously missed the boat, but he didn't deserve to get what's called felted. And they even have it here, felted boulevard. It's when you're called onto their Kino Casino table felt, and then they try to tear you a new one, right, by making fun of you, and then their audience has fun. But then in addition, they'll cyberstalk and cyberbully and harass, and they'll encourage people to do the same. And then part of their network includes people who are part of a hacking network, okay, where they'll hack people and cyberstalk people and release your information, your private information publicly. So that's what we're dealing with right now. And it is really wild and scary.
Didn't we see that with our Cash Patel when they sent the video of him dancing and then drinking with friends?
Yeah, that's along the theme is where he was probably cyber hacked for his cameras or whatever by some group of hackers or an individual hacker over here. But then once that hacker got that footage, they made it a point to get it over to these other hackers and media outlets over here. And so this is where it becomes a group or gang stalking activity. And it's one thing when you want to make fun of people and do videos and, make pictures of them where they've got like blacked out teeth or red demon eyes and they've got horns. That's all satire and parody. That's totally fine. But when you are releasing the private information to tell people to attack them, and I'm saying, here, for example, we're reporting on this because I've been a victim of a lot of these people, along with my personal friends and people in our community, several of whom are now dead, and who, before they died, complained specifically by name about these people that we're naming. So if they want to bring a lawsuit, then we get to go to discovery, and I get to lawyer up with all the resources that we collectively will have at our disposal. And it's one thing for them to try to pick on us individually, where like we're the individual and they're the gang of bullies. But how about where we organize up to say, no, we're not going to allow your PDF file networks to gang stalk all of our whistleblowers and truth tellers just because we're pointing out the truth. Us pointing out the truth of your abuses isn't abusive, but
Right.
you carrying out abuses is incredibly abusive and evil, and you're going to pay for it not only in this life but definitely the next.
Have any of the people that you're talking about also experienced some of the cyber stalking where it's been voice to skull or where nanotech has been used to torture them?
So that's a different category, because
Mhm.
the people that we're naming, at least at this level, these are more your three third 3D matrix garden variety level stalking and harassment.
Right.
Once you're talking about voice to skull, whether it's synthetic V2K because they're using technology, or it's actual telepathy where there's a handler who is so psychically enabled, unlocked, empowered that they can just literally telepathically connect with you. Or a lot of it is that telepathic handler is connecting with um, an asset, as they call many people in our community, or target individual who they themselves are also telepathic. So then their telepathy will work two ways. Otherwise, they have to do more the technological version. But anyone at
Right.
that level, that's going to be like deep state, cabal, secret space program, and at that level, which is like way levels higher than your your trolls that we're dealing with. They're all players who are working for the other side, but they're at very different pieces and tentacles of the other side.
Have you also identified infiltrators that have come in and like wolves in sheep's clothing to get close to you guys?
Um, I mean, they're in the community, and then for
Mhm.
me, it seems like the people who've been sent to me, it's less an infiltrator directly sent my way who's an they themselves know they're infiltrated, and it's more I'm surrounded by people in the community. Of those people in the community, we're all at different levels of having on the armor of God, of being of sound and clear mind with good discernment, which is great discernment, which is the most important tool in this fight.
Absolutely.
And so the people who have more discernment, things like voice to skull, doesn't work as well. Um, and I'll give an example. And then the people who don't have that discernment, they don't have the armor of God, they're in their ego, they get hit with voice to skull. They're told they're the new Messiah and they're going to save the world and they need to target
Right.
these people X, Y, and Z. And then next thing
Megalomaniac.
you know, there's a maniac online who's like giving death threats to people. So I've seen more of that level of stuff.
Mhm.
For example, good friends of ours in the community, Laura Eisenhower, great granddaughter, might be great great granddaughter of um, former President Ike Eisenhower, and
Mhm.
Drago Reed. They came under huge attack by an internet stalker troll going by the name of Ash Bray. That's not her real name. And she apparently was in the programs as well as Drago. And they had a romantic relationship at one point briefly, or like not even, but she began to stalk him relentlessly and then kind of like left him alone finally after like a few years. And then he began to hit the circuit, the conference circuit, really hard to tell his very detailed testimonies of whistleblowing on super soldier projects and secret space programs and like super soldier groups like the Kruger mercenary group, um, things like that. And uh, there was a friend of mine who reached out to me, and a mutual friend of his and mine. And she reached out to me and she said, you know, there was this weekend where she was getting voice to skull messaging all weekend, Saturday and Sunday, basically like Drago ruined your life. He's terrible. He does this. He does that. You need to, go after him and you need to take him down. It's like messages along that line. We're going to my one gal pal friend who
Mhm.
also knows Drago. And she was telling this voice to Skull, replying back, no, I'm not going to do that. Take a hike, screw off, blah, blah, blah. No, no, no. It's over the course of Saturday and Sunday,
Mhm.
incessantly bugging her. Finally, that Sunday afternoon, she said, like late in the afternoon or whatever, it goes away. 15 minutes later, she logs on, and this person named Ash Bray has done this huge rant against Drago and Laura. So it's like it seems like if it didn't work against her to like set her off as a wind-up toy, then they pick someone else who's in the community who they themselves have programming. They're targeted. They've been in the operations special access projects, SAPs or programs that are black book off budget. And, until they find their useful idiot to try to wreck and sow confusion amongst us to break up our podcasts and our shows and our conferences and writing our books. And in some cases it's effective, and in other cases it just makes us pissed off and fight harder. And then also, because they're not omnipotent, the other side, it when we are vigilant as a community, we can out them, call them out, and now all the dots are being connected. We've got Isaac Kappy's dead man switch. I mean, geez, all that's
Mhm.
actionable intelligence. If anybody in
Yes.
law enforcement, local, state, federal, especially the federal levels and even international, want to intervene, it's all right there. It's not like they need us here at the civilian level to do their jobs for them.
Well, you've given some excellent advice there because I think that this is a wider spread problem than people realize, because we not only have it where it's deliberate with talented psychics doing this to others, where it's done electronically, but thoughts have a frequency, and that frequency doesn't has a infinite range. So that means that when we're walking through uh, our day, we're not just picking up our own thoughts, but we're also being bombarded with the thoughts of everyone else who's awake and thinking. And so, I've come to the practice to look at what I've been thinking all day and discard those things that could be considered dark until they no longer can penetrate. And it's very, very difficult to do at first because it also creates fear. And I think that is their biggest weapon. If they can get you to fear, then they have more control over penetrating your mind and getting you to do things that you normally wouldn't do. You want to respond to
100,
that?
I mean, 100%, Joan. That's their ultimate form of black magic, is getting us to live in lower vibrations of fear. And their truths are so ugly that they're trying to make us fear the truth and then try to embrace their happy distortions and lies, when we need to overcome the fear, live in love and truth, because truth is in the vibration of love, and love always overcomes fear, which in fear always leads to hate and loss, whereas love is the opposite direction, as far as east is
Yes.
from west.
Mhm.
And so we're up from down. And that's why they're always spreading the lies, is because if they can get us to live in a funhouse mirror maze that is very limited hangout, and the hangout is the totally wrong syllogisms, then they can continue to do what they're doing and run this prison farm the way they want to run it. If we can enlighten and awaken enough of the inmates and coordinate us with the truth, then we can easily overrun them and breach the walls and then build the society that we've been meant to build, but have been hijacked from for however many thousands of years, going back to Rome and Egypt and Canaan and Babylon, and before that, pre-flood to Atlantis and even perhaps Lemuria.
And so to do that, when you're talking about love, It's very difficult to love if you are living in fear and worry, because it's like contaminates it. Now, now you're looking for a scapegoat to relieve that pain that you're feeling from the fear and the worry, and that creates what I would call, it contaminates the ability to love. And so I think it's important to be aware of the evil in the world, but not be not let it consume you. And this is part of that. What thoughts are mine? What thoughts are loving and caring, and which are destructive? Those are not mine. I reject them. And then I know that when I go through this, worry and fear are not part of my makeup. When I do this, worry and fear are not part of my makeup. Awareness is, discernment is. That's where it goes. It becomes awareness and discernment, but it's not worry and it's not fear. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Again, they've apparently, I mean, it goes all the way back to the negative archonic types reversing the energetic grids of this planet to reverse the energies that come in, and then off of that distortion, then all of us get a distorted picture, and then that's part of this whole matrix simulation overlay that's been kind of dumped on top of us. And so by getting out the truth, we're kind of tearing down the matrix overlay, and then the truths, it's always getting away from the 3D level of like left and right wing, red team versus blue team, and then getting up to, wait, these are organized satanic Luciferian PDF cults, and then they themselves are under Anunnaki, reptilian, gray, demonic influences to then basically drag humanity down a negative transhumanism timeline. And then everyone who's telling the truth and bringing the light, we're fighting against the negative timeline to bring about the higher Christed timeline.
And then I think another habit people have is they have a good box and a bad box. And they'll look at something and they'll say, that goes in my good box. And they'll look at something else that goes in my bad box, and I hate that. So you've got that going on. But if instead they said, does this come from love, or does this come from fear? And sort that way, I think they're gonna have a better chance to eliminate that control that fear has over us.
You have to know thyself, and in knowing thyself, it's they say, woe unto those who can't tell good from evil or evil from good, and especially woe unto you if you confuse the two. And so again, there's that inner compass of discernment, and by basing it on that love versus fear, because those are the two most universal or elemental components, then through that lens, we're able to do a lot of healing, because then people get to understand that a lot of our self-destructive or negative behaviors and attitudes don't come up from a place of love. They come from a place of fear. And even fear comes from a place of, in a way, love, because you don't fear unless you have something to lose.
Right.
And so in a way, fear is even coming out of love, but it's a misplaced, stunted version aspect, and it needs to be resolved and healed and reconciled for that kind of Hegelian dialectic to resolve itself to a newer and higher, hopefully not so much contradiction, but a better state of being.
You use the term happy distortion. What would be an example of a happy distortion?
In the movie The Matrix, when Cypher is eating with Agent Smith the steak dinner in the simulation, and they're at the fine restaurant, and Cypher is saying, this is probably recycled human waste, and this that I'm eating, and the wine I'm drinking, who knows, it's motor oil in reality, but in this Matrix reality, to me, it's steak and fine wine, so I'm going to go with that. but that's a happy distortion, because while sure he's happy, he thinks in this distortion of making these horrible, evil things palatable to himself, he's actually working with an agent to enable the downfall of all of humanity. So that would be a happy distortion. And we do that all the time. The people who, they believe that there's some killer virus out there, and if they just roll up their sleeves, they're going to be okay. And to them, that's a happy distortion. And then it gets so destructive that not only can they undo their own health, but then they're pushing it on their children, their grandchildren, their coworkers, their subordinates, their fellow churchgoers. I've seen it all.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a narcissistic thing where you like to put fear and hate and that on other people. Unhappy.
Well, that's not for everyone, Terry. Then that's a special brand of people who then enjoy the fear mongering, and then they take it, and then they're like the Chicken Little running around. The sky is falling, and they get a power trip off of that. And that's, I guess, a mania or a distortion in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not everyone buying into the fear. That's just a more extreme manifestation of that.
So would it be like you told me this is good for me, and so that makes me feel good, and even though it's not, I don't want to know about it, because just thinking that it's good for me is enough.
Yeah, that's a combination of virtue signaling and gaslighting. And the virtue signaling component is that's the push and the pull, right? I'm going to gaslight you and beat you over the head if you don't do what I want. And then the virtue signaling is, of course you want to do what I want. You're a good person, right? Okay. And that's part of this woke mind virus, also technically defined or clinically defined as Wetiko, by some professor decades ago, the woke mind virus, where there's these distorted concepts that are floated out there as being good and virtuous. And so anybody who embraces these good and virtuous concepts is obviously themselves good and virtuous. The more they advertise being attached to these ideas, they again are more yet good and virtuous. And then by extension, anybody who does not embrace these woke, typically liberal, wannabe progressive, but they are actually anti-true progressivism, those concepts, then you are by definition terrible, horrible, blah, blah, blah. There can be nothing worse. And that demonization and dehumanization happens to the extent that the other side that's gaslighting you or us or whoever, they don't have to listen to what the other side's logic is anymore, because that side is so evil and bad. By definition, nothing they say can be good. Now you've shut off all logic, all discourse, and that's exactly what the New World Order wants, is to put in these indivisible barriers into each society, whether a Western democratic or a more Oriental Eastern authoritarian, it doesn't matter. Whatever they can do to undermine any society while they force in their New World Order, with the latest being weaponized ticks and mosquitoes and data centers.
Mm-hmm. And so today we call them Karens.
Well, the Karens are a specific subgroup of gaslighters within the virtue signaling community who tend to be within the category of flying monkey, because the Karens generally are low level, who are enforcing the status quo. Why aren't you wearing your mask? How come you aren't on your 5th booster yet, like I and all my grandchildren are? Okay. Those are the Karens. Then you got the higher level Karens, like the Susan Wojcicki's. I'm probably messing up her name, former now deceased CEO of YouTube, who, while she was in her tenureship, went along with the Biden administration's directives to basically censor all discussion on the jabs and their bioweapons nature and the scamdemic and its origins and all of that. And she herself, what do you know, died several years ago of turbo cancer. So she didn't even
Mhm.
last that long, but she, you know, you got to hand it to her. It looks like she lived and died by the same sword that she wielded.
Yeah. So
She
she
was a
was
true
willing to
believer.
both gaslight and buy the feces steak.
Yeah, and that's how sinister all of this is. Is
Mhm.
the other side, they're not going to warn all their people or all the people who drank their Kool-Aid who you would think are on their side. Really, it's a super tiny Luciferian Anunnaki reptilian archonic elite, quote unquote elite of human puppets who are the most inbred bastards out there. And they're up here, okay? And then they've got all their power structure paid off minions who have their relative levels of steak and fine wine. Okay. And then they're
Mhm.
doing adrenochrome and ambrosia. That's really their currency and soul scalping, all of that level. But anyone in this level, they're not necessarily going to know not to roll up their sleeves. And then if they do, the people here at the top, I mean, I hesitate to call them people, I use that term loosely, but they're super happy about it because the more that are eliminated, the merrier, the more power for them.
So
It's that sinister.
would you say those at the top are most likely participating in cult activity? Or
Oh,
would you say the
100%.
cult activity is under them?
Well, it's it goes back to Ephesians 6:12, for we struggle not against powers of flesh, but of darkness and higher realms and principalities.
Mhm.
Um, Ultimately, it's not the humans calling the shots. They're just the humans who have done the most rituals and have the most bloodline or inbredness in them. And so they've been put in these positions of power to run the machinery. They're like the factory managers and you know, slave drivers. But if
Mhm.
they don't do the rituals that they're apparently, and this, I mean, this is my research, and like Isaac Kappy's and everyone else who has a clue, the Patriot Truther Full Disclosure Movement folks, and the Ascension, um, they, as they get higher and higher in power, they have to do nastier and nastier things. They have to go from engaging in abuse and eating poop and things like that to then actual ritualistic full-on murder after doing the abuse, and it just gets nastier and nastier, and then making other people do that and levels of that and then running networks of that. And that's exactly what we're seeing in all the people named in Isaac Kappy's Dead Man Switch there. And
Do
that's
you
only
think
half of it, apparently. The other
now?
half, someone else has, and I'm told that they don't know how to contact whoever has the other half, but it's floating around out there.
So also, Penny actually brought this in, but do you think hypnotism has anything to do with them getting them to do these horrible things like eating poop?
Um, I'd say less hypnotism and more demonic possession, because
So
that's the
once they're
occult.
possessed, they really don't have a whole lot of control of what they're gonna do?
Exactly. I mean,
Mhm.
that's the definition of possession right there, Joan.
Mhm.
Is the greater the extent of possession, the less control the individual victim, or if they're a willing participant, I hesitate to call them a victim, because if you do a ritual to engage with demonic energies and have a demon imprinted upon you, or a
Yes.
reptilian or an Anunnaki, and then one's coming through and running your life because you wanted supposedly power or fame or fortune, then that you go from being a victim to being complicit and being a perpetrator.
Now I'm gonna give you kind of a scenario that I saw somebody outline about how this works is they would do the ritual and then, like, say, a performer, and then they'd get possessed so that they can perform at levels they could not perform at otherwise. singing, dancing, and performance. And then in the beginning, that
As
demon,
Beyonce.
yeah, that
Mhm.
that demon lets go. But as they do this more and more, the demon is less likely to leave. And this is where you see madness set in. Is that what you have also seen or heard in your ventures?
Yes, time and again. Websites like vigilantcitizen.com, I believe they're
Mhm.
heavily censored. They're great. And that gentleman dives very deeply in all the occult aspects and brings out the testimonies of people like Lady Gaga, who apparently complains that she needs to travel with a full-on retinue or entourage of people because she doesn't like to sleep alone because she gets hassled by dark entities too much, the shadow people. That she doesn't like mirrors anywhere she stays,
Right?
and
Sounds
you're
like a
going to
vampire
find,
to me.
yeah, well, the occult pattern, or as a paranormal researcher investigator, I would say, I'll call myself that, right? Um, the more you open yourself up to the demonic energies, the more your soul essence is outside of your body. And that's where people are reporting seeing more and more shadow beings and shadow figures. What my psychic and spiritually, fellow friends tell me is that, yeah, that's those shadow beings. They can tell that your body is like becoming more and more empty of like your soul. And so they're hovering around to jump into your body to possess you
Right.
Are
So
you
because they can tell.
are you
go
familiar?
ahead, go ahead, Terry.
Are you familiar with the interaction of Sasha Riley with President Trump that came out recently? This isn't
So I've heard
recent.
about this. I've heard about this. Sasha Riley is apparently a victim and survivor of ritual SRA. Um, yeah, and is naming Trump among others. I'm familiar with this. My take on this is he may or may not have been involved in a lot of this stuff because he's in all those circles. But even so, within the Illuminati or the cult of Baal, as Anya Wick, niece of Jeffrey Epstein, calls them out and names them as they apparently have named themselves to her as they were abusing her and many children. They wait. So, what was your exact question? I want to make sure I'm getting this right.
Well, there came out recently Sasha Riley, which is a young man.
Oh yeah.
Military,
Sasha Riley. Right,
yeah,
because of this,
wanted to,
they have different
Trump wanted him to
factions.
do something to him, and he did something else to him, which has caused some damage to Trump.
Right,
and
right.
I don't want to get into that.
So what I think is it's possible that Trump is part of these networks.
Yeah.
Okay, but these networks are not all one united pyramid. They even have their infighting and fracturing, and so I give Trump the benefit of the doubt enough to say, hey, White Hat's military, they picked him as the only civilian who could beat Hillary back in 2016. Otherwise, we could have had nuclear World War III zombie apocalypse by then. Time travelers from the Montauk Project who has seen the Hillary presidency timeline say we have World War III. Often it's nuclear. And then from there, it can get even worse.
Mhm.
And so to the extent that Trump as POTUS is doing the job that the people and white hats would have him do and clean out the FBI, CIA, Department of Justice, Department of Energy, Department of Education, do the Doge and do all those things, great. To the extent that he's selling us out to Palantir and Peter Thiel and the AI digital revolution and data centers and glyphosates, and this and that, and allowing the chemtrailing and weaponized ticks and chem fog to continue, okay, he's dropping the ball there. And so,
Right.
I have an adult, mature perspective. I'm not 100% he can do no wrong and 100% I hate the guy. It's okay, where he does well, I'm going to pat
I
him on the
agree.
back, and where he does wrong, I'm going to criticize him like we're supposed to do.
I agree.
That's how it's supposed to work. But politics, as we call it today, is more like they're either 100% good or evil, and there's no in between, and that's part of the wedge that the other side is always enforcing through its Khazarian pro-Zion media.
Yeah. It's interesting that you're covering that, because we covered Palantir Tuesday on Life with Joan.
Days are going really.
I know. And we covered the dilemma of getting them out of the government and the damage that would cost because of their penetration electronically, and how difficult it is to replace that. And
well, there's one thing you can do.
Call
them out for the war crimes they're guilty of. You arrest them, put them on trial, and you seize everything, and then you make sure that it's under a white hat leadership, and then you nuke whatever shouldn't exist, and then you maintain and keep whatever should exist, hopefully on behalf of we the people, for the people, by the people, under a united constitutional republic of the United States of America. So that's the solution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The solution is keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah. And that, and that can't happen overnight either. That's
never give up.
And so, and hopefully that's the direction it's going. Hopefully that's what will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when more and more people understand what's happened, if that does happen, there won't be the rebellion that there would be if we had the world full of Karens.
Well, the Karens, this is a good point. I'm glad you're bringing up the Karens, because psychologically, the Karens are the greatest instance of Stockholm syndrome out there that to point to. Everyone who's a Karen is trying to reinforce this scene. And hello to everyone joining us on Facebook, by the way. Norma, I'm looking at the chat, and we're on Rumble, which all these shows will be archived to and will remain on. Whereas here on Facebook, the stuff gets deleted like after 30 days or something like that.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. We got like some comments in the audience here. James Andrews, as far as I know, the Khazarian Mafia are the neocons, who are mostly German, high-ranking deep state technocrats who strive to take away the global control away from the Zionists. Well, no, the Khazarian Mafia and the neocon Zionists are all pro-Israel. The neocons especially tend to be very, very pro-Israel. And that was part of like the Middle East strategy of 9/11, is you knock down Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, etc., to build your pipeline through to the Caspian Sea. That's all on behalf of the Zionist Israelis. And that's where you get, if you even look at the neocons, people like Billy Crystal and all them, they're very hardcore pro-Israel. So they're they're on the same side, along with their attempts at trying to hegemonize the rest of the world, especially in regards to taking over Russia and China, etc. They already have, to a large extent, taken over much of China's technical industry under the nose of the Chinese Communist government. Well, what happened is the Rothschilds and the Khazarians basically infiltrated the Chinese Communist government, and that's why the supposed CCP, they're not running a communist playbook, they're running a New World Order playbook. That's where they're doing the smart cities, the scamdemic jabs and all of that. That is not, quote unquote, communism garden variety. That's hijacked. While they still combat Russia through Ukraine, that's correct. The Khazarians are using Ukraine as their proxy to take out Russia, which they never forgave for kicking them out, for sacrificing children and their Molech worship. All going all the way back to the 700s. They already have put in place a quantum AI in China with the intentions of assimilating all life on Earth via means of nano smart dust, along with human alien-like robots now in final stage of development. The Zionists, on the other hand, are desperately trying to play the Trump card with Trump to defend themselves against. So James has kind of got it right, but again, all this neocon Zionist stuff, they're all under the same thing of the Khazarians, who are then under the Anunnaki and reptilians and greys and demons.
And
in the
also,
Lucifer.
Palantir is once they got on, proved themselves with Peter Thiel's investment into Palantir, Israel came in and backed them, and then they used Palantir. It's heavily involved in Israel. They're sort of beta testing it there, but it is also what's operating in Ukraine. So if they were against each other, there wouldn't be, if Ukraine and Israel were against each other, Ukraine would not
Oh,
have Palantir in there.
they couldn't be more not against each other. In fact,
Mhm.
those are the two strongholds of the Khazarian Mafia.
Right.
It technically shouldn't really be exactly where Israel is now, because these Khazarians are probably more from Babylon, where Turkey is today.
Mhm.
These are the ones who were the Canaanites and Babylonians. That's
Right.
where you get cannibals, Canaanites, and Baal worshippers
Mhm.
who were on either side of the real, I guess, Judaics, Hebraics that Yeshua came from, who spoke
Mhm.
Aramaic. And they were the ones worshiping Molech and Baal, sacrificing and molesting the children. Okay. And those groups went from that area, fled to Eastern Europe, where Ukraine is today. And that's where we get the term the Khazarian Mafia from, the Khazars. Okay. Where what they would do is they would be like, and there's a great article on, it's called The Incredible Evil of the Khazarian Mafia. I think that's the name of the article. It's really good.
Mhm.
And just like Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, more east in the Orient along the Silk Road,
Mhm.
tying Europe and Asia. They would raid down like Alibaba and the 40 Thieves from the mountain strongholds, because they would see the caravans way off in the distance while they were high up in their lairs, and they would swoop down on the Silk Road, and they would, like, take everyone and kill everyone and, jack the stuff. The Khazarians in the Ukraine, in that area, because the Balkans, they not only would raid down on the caravans, but they would kidnap you, torture you, interrogate you, find out who you were, where you were going, who you're going to see, what you're going to do with them once you got there, if they've ever met you before. So if they could tell if it was you, or if they could swap out and become imposters, they would take your place as the fake caravan, continue on down the road, and then they infiltrated the great and royal houses, both to the east and to the west, along the Silk Roads in Asia and Europe. And then
They
from
all
there, that's where I'm sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
They also did that with hospitality, where you were, because as you're traveling, just like a hotel, you need a place to stay, and they're going through Khazaria, and they roll out the carpet for these guys and get them talking and know everything about them, murder them, and then take their identity and continue on, so that whatever trade they were going for, if there was something that they would confiscate that, so they got their trade, or they got the money or the goods they were using for the trade, or both.
Yeah,
So
money and power.
yeah,
Money
and
and
so
power to further their cult and to
they were
take
known
over the
as the
entire
name.
world.
Yeah, they were called the name stealers.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah,
Russia gave them Russia said, okay, these guys need religion, pick one, and they picked Jew, and
exactly.
they're not Jewish.
No, they're the synagogue of Satan. That's where they have the Kabbalah, and they're it's like a evil version of the Talmud that's been surfaced, where it's like they showed it. I seen video of it. It's like kind of like almost like on gold, and it's got like the different demonic entities, and then it's got
Mhm.
that star of Remphan, which in the Bible was never the Star of David. That was always a demonic, kind of like the pentagram has been appropriated, unfortunately, the upside down version, especially by the Luciferians. The six-pointed star, in the higher tradition, it represents the Merkaba, right, which
Mhm.
is a spiritual sacred geometry. But any sacred spiritual geometry or symbolism can get hijacked, just like does the pedophile, quote unquote, the pedophile swirl. That
Yes.
swirl, that
Right.
appears in Aboriginal art. It's over 1,000 years old. Okay, is that to say the Aboriginals were PDF files on FBI watch list? No. What it says is they were representing portals, magical places with a spiral. It's like a portal. Okay. And what PDF files have done, unfortunately, is they see children as portals. And so they've
Yeah.
misappropriated the spiral symbol as being their own. And so today, a lot of us truthers and patriots, we see a spiral and we automatically think pedophile, right? And we'd be right. But if you were to look at Australian Aboriginal art, right, you know, that you'd be 100% wrong to jump to that conclusion, but there's a reason why. It's because these symbols and objects or forms and shapes of beauty and grace have been co-opted. And that's what
Even
evil
the-
does.
Even the swastika, wasn't that also hijacked?
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, for one thing, it's the North Pole and it's different seasonal configurations. Okay. So that's, or the Big Dipper, sorry. The Big Dipper in seasonal configurations would appear as a swastika. Also, that's again, it's like a swastika, it's like a spinning propeller blade, which appears in nature all the time, whether clockwise or counterclockwise. And that goes back to the quote unquote Aryans of India. And that's probably because they had Syrian ETs visiting them, sharing, and those were the blue beings, sharing all sorts of scientific data. And that sacred symbol, among others, got ingrained into their culture. It's on Buddhist maps as like sites of temples and sacred spots. And then the Nazis expropriated it.
Now, going back to the Khazarians that operate as Jews, they were the ones, weren't they the ones that started Israel after World War II? And then
Correct. It was through the Rothschilds.
Right.
And the Lord Balfour Declaration.
Right.
Yeah. And so when that happened, Israel needed to be populated, but the Jews didn't want to move there because they had it pretty good where they were. And so what I had read was that the Khazarians did false flags to make the Jews feel they were under attack, so that they had to migrate to Israel in order to be safe. And yet it was, so they basically, they're the fathers of false flags.
Correct. They're trying to drive the end of days Book of Revelation narrative of supposedly a biblical Israel being an actual state that they had to tear away from the Palestinians and, you know, turn Gaza into a parking lot. None of that is biblical. And then again, there's a reason why genetic testing, a lot of it is illegal. The institutions of Israel, apparently they can do it in certain situations, but for the most part, you don't have 23andMe in Israel because they don't want it out that, like, some people say up to 90% of Israel is not of Sephardic, actual Hebrew, Judaic, you know, origin. They're of this Ashkenazi, more like Yiddish, not Jewish, actual, or Hebrew rather. I mean, and I don't want to mess up the cultures and get called antiseptic. I just want to be historically accurate.
Well, about this antiseptic, it sounds to me that the Jews never really got out from under oppression, but they're being oppressed now by the fake Jews.
Correct, because there are many groups of Jews, true Jews, and I salute and support them, who they actively call out the Zionist state of Israel. And they say there is nothing Judaic, there's nothing good in destroying a population to take over a land, to commit atrocities that are, you know, up there with the Holocaust that, you know, wasn't 6 million. The Red Cross numbers are 271,000. Okay. And so all this was basically orchestrated by the Khazarians in the form of the bloodline family of the Rothschilds, who have bragged about advancing the Balfour Declaration and agenda. As early as 1933, you had the Ashkenazi like Israel party or group where they were lining up Aryan Germans with these Ashkenazi Jews to basically figure out how to create a homeland in Israel. And then that's when you had the post-World War II Balfour Declaration being put into effect. I guess Balfour Declaration was signed in like 1944, so World War II wasn't even over at the time. But again, they had this in planning stages in the 30s at least. And then again, you can go back and reference Albert Pike and their New World Order plans, which the Rothschilds are absolutely part of and have been a major instrument of this whole time. You know, I don't know how far Albert Pike goes back. He might go back to like 1870s or something like that.
So I'm going to show you a map to just so people understand how this is Israel. Israel, I believe, is the blue. In 1947, the blue part was Israel. Between 1949 and 67, in the second picture, that's the blue part of Israel. In the third picture from 67 to 2000, the dark blue is Israel, and the lighter blue is what Israel controls. Now, in 2000 to the actual to right now, the dark is Israel, the light blue is what Israel controls, and the green is Palestine. Palestine was given some land back. So Palestine was green in 1947 is the green in the very first one. And in the last one, you can see the little green patch by the sea. That's what they're bombing the heck out of. That little tiny patch, this big blue area, is going after this little tiny patch. And you can see why there's tension there. So you can see the predatory progress of Israel in their own area just by these maps. So I just thought maybe that would add to what you're saying.
Yeah, the state of Palestine is gone. Effectively, it's been wiped off the map.
Right.
It's been genocided.
Yes.
And
It was
anyone,
called by Benjamin Netanyahu at I don't know if it was a UN, but it was before the October 7 event.
Yeah.
He displayed that with no Palestine. It's not there anymore.
well, it gets worse. They want a greater Israel that then bleeds into Egypt and Lebanon and all around that region. And then they have the IDF, Israeli Defense Force soldiers who have like that patch, and they'll show that, and they make no secret of that. And anyone who calls us out, then they get targeted by Gabe Hoffman and the pedo casino trolls, who then are linked, are buddy with Steve Cambian of Truth Seekers, who's being called out directly by Corey Good and many others in the community, like myself and Sarah R. Adams. I don't agree with Corey Good on a lot, but I agree that these people who hounded David and cyberstalked him and bullied him and doxed him and made up lies and slander about him, they should be held accountable by the justice system, because there are criminal laws against cyberstalking, harassing, and bullying. And if the victim dies, it goes from 1 to 5 years of imprisonment to 5 years to up to life imprisonment as a penalty under these federal cyberstalking rules.
Yes, I actually have had a cyberstalker since 2017. I think I mentioned it on one of the postings on your site, and was perpetually texting me, emailing me, calling me when I was on shows. I gave him cease and desist over I don't know how many times. Doxed me on one of his YouTube channels. I think that's been since taken down. He also was thrown in the crazy house on several occasions, stalked his judge in Oregon, stalked the FBI, two of the FBI, stalked some other people, which I cannot mention. They asked me to contact the FBI in Oregon, which I did. Then the FBI in Oregon started asking me if I like had this guy's social security or whatever. I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, are you querying me? This guy's stalking me. And he had stalked and several other individuals for 30 years. When I
30 years.
mentioned this person's 30 years, when I mentioned this person's name on X, then I got a timeout on X. I'm like, okay, you're saying that I'm like calling out my stalker who's putting out my information out there, and now and I get admonished. So at present, I'm praying that this individual doesn't raise his head. But what the point of what I'm trying to say is that they are psychopaths. Okay, a psychopath will attack you until you are dead or they are dead. That is who they are. They will continue this psychopathic behavior until the end of time. And I just wanted to say this has been an incredibly enjoyable segment. Brian Singh, you killed it with so much information. And this has really been enjoyable for me. I agree with pretty much everything you said. I don't think there's one thing you've said that I don't agree with.
But of course, it's for entertainment purposes, everybody.
Yes, for entertainment purposes only. And everything's totally unrelated.
That's right.
Right.
There's no coincidences here. But you know, I will add, I didn't personally know Kappy, but I did talk to him, and I was supposed to meet him in Albuquerque, and then he chose for some reason to go see Fiona Barnett, who we have Fiona Barnett. We're doing some interviews with her on Agent X11, and she mentioned some of the same people that you did, but she's not going to, you know, pursue that. For myself, if I had incident with anybody in my life, I felt it better to just walk away and not to pursue. But at one point when I found out I was MK Ultra, I was pretty angry that, you know, these people that I had known for many, many years were not who I thought they were. But the anger it doesn't suit anybody. It doesn't help anything. And I'm still going to be researching the aspects of my life that I'm trying to find the answers for. And I did also wanted to mention MK Ultra. MK Ultra is now going to be revisited in congressional hearings May 19th. I have an individual who's a very good friend, Jesse Beltran, and I'm praying that he actually gets to speak at that MK Ultra hearing, because MK Ultra, not only did it not end, but it has an exponentially increased torture aspect from the advanced technology that DARPA and the Pentagon and the military have been utilizing and developing, which we saw in the raid with Madero. We saw the microwave weaponry, the discombobulator. It is real, and it is being used on many people. I'm going to also encourage everybody, if you haven't seen our show today on Awake Nation, please go back and watch it. We had Dominic Halpin on, who I absolutely adore. He's on his third documentary about psychotronic warfare, which is still being implemented upon him. He has Jesse Beltran in one of his documentaries, and Jesse's done, I don't know how many documentaries now, but he's opening up centers so he can scan people, because we're not just talking about the psychotronic, we're also talking about the implementation of mRNA, which can be used against you as a receptor for what is already out there, which is 5G, but now they're implementing 6G. So I'm going to tell our audience, please research everything. Brian Singh has given you a virtual cornucopia of things to research, and I would like that research on the dead man switch. And also there were so many things in there that I was looking at, like I could have commented, I could have done like an entire show on that, which we might do that. But
Yeah, I'm going to forward it to you right now.
Yeah, all of the things that are in there, I know of and about, because I've had to research them. I worked with Megan Walsh for several years, and that goes to Johnny Gosch, it goes to Reagan, it goes to the Finders, it goes to just many, many things that we've all researched. But here's my concluding point. We all need to work together. We all need to support one another. We all need to help one another. And that's why I do these shows. That's why I do Awake Nation. That's why I do Agent X11, because it's our opportunity to give whistleblowers an opportunity to speak. We need to listen to what they're saying, and we need to take action. I told Dominic he's a hero in my book, because while these things are happening to him, he went out and he made those 3 documentaries, and he's not making any money. He made those 3 documentaries and he's giving them away for free to educate you. And that's his way of fighting back. So I suggest that's what we need to do. We need to provide information, and then we need a community that's behind us, that supports us, and that also continues the research. So if you have any subjects that you think that we should be talking about, please text my phone at 619-779-9771. If you would like to be a guest on Brian Singh Presents or on any of the Agent X11s, please text my phone at 619-779-9771. Say who you are, and we'll try to get you on any of the shows, Awake Nation or Awake Nation News for investigative journalists. I have another show, which is Patriot Crossroads. It's under the Agent X11 umbrella. If you're a political commentary individual, text me and take a look at some of our shows. They're on the David Zubik channel on Rumble. They're also on the Agent X11 channel on Rumble. They reside there. So these shows will be there for perpetuity, unless, of course, we get an EMP. Hello, baby! Unless we have an EMP and it wipes everything out. Hey, baby, how are you?
It's Patchy Boy. He's one of my tuxedo twins.
Love you, Patchy. He's like, oh, stop, Penny. I know I'm beautiful.
Looks like he's posing for you.
I know. It's like, look at me. Yeah. He is beautiful. Well, we are kind of at the end. Does anyone have any concluding remarks? I've said mine.
Oh, I just want to call out Terry Wigg real quick of Not My Rabbit Hole. She's been trolling me recently because someone slandered me and called me a human trafficker. She did a whole video saying, is Brian saying a human trafficker? And then it's like, that's her level of journalism. Wow. So don't bother to ask me.
Do I know this person?
She's a failed comedian, and
I do know her, and I would like to make a comment on that.
Oh, please.
This individual who I had to research afterwards was the girlfriend of Stephen D. Kelly. Stephen D. Kelly, who threatened an individual who's very prominent, who had to hide out. Her name is Allie Carter. Threatened her. And at one point, she screamed in my ear. I had a headset on. I can still hear her now, Brian. It was like years ago. Screamed in my ear that Fiona Barnett was a psyop. And I pulled that thing out of my ear.
Who screamed that at you? Terry Joyce screamed that at you?
She did indeed.
She's claiming Fiona Barnett is a psyop.
That's right. And so I went back to her because I found out some stuff about her alleged ex-boyfriend, who is a twin, who has an office very close to my former agents and is also involved in the entertainment industry. Says that he actually isn't CIA. He's a contractor, which the CIA uses contractors. And so I went back to her and said, who's the psyop now? And she seems very proud of the fact that she was involved in the pornographic world.
Well, she's proud of that. I thought she hid it these days.
No, she was proud of that.
So Terry Joyce was in some kind of circus-themed porn. So this is a matter of public record. Like, I'm telling the truth here. Yeah, you can look it up. And she was performing oral on a dwarf. And then what I heard is that she was so unattractive that they never show her face. They show her in the act. And then so here's this person, and normally I'm not this cruel and bagging on people like this, but, because I don't care, honestly. But at the point you're going to hound people in our community and make fun of us and make up lies about me, and they're obvious lies, and then like where that gives me legal ground, and then she's in a glass house doing dwarf porn in her past, and cool. It's not, I don't know.
And I don't do shows like that. I don't call people out. But I'll tell you this much: if you do anything to my friends, I am going to speak up because I'm that loyal. So, Terry Bradley, did you have any final comments?
Yeah, just that this is a marvelous educational segment, and I appreciate it, Brian, very much. And I just want to mention to folks that please like, subscribe, and share. And also consider donating to PayPal through shepherdentertainment@gmail.com. That's shepherdentertainment@gmail.com. And for more information, you can go to the website at shepherd-entertainment.com. And you can see this show and others on XKBT 143.
Excellent. And thank you so very much. Brian Singh, where can people find you?
For now, still, I've got everything under wraps until I make some larger announcements. But because of all the cyber stalking and harassment and trolling and illegal activity being conducted against us here in the Full Disclosure Movement, I'm still a little bit mum's the word. So for now, reach out to me, message me directly on Facebook. I'll send you the first half of Isaac Kappy's Dead Man Switch that was shared with me. Now that he's gone, the whole point of a Dead Man Switch is to share out the switch. And so
Absolutely.
I can be found online, Facebook, Brian Sang, add Solar Bee, my nickname there, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Excellent. John Renee, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me here on Agent X11. You can find me also on the Awake Nation News and the Awake Nation Interviews. You can find me on Trauma Triage on Wednesdays with Heather Day. I co-host with her. And then every 2 weeks, you can find me on Life with Joan. And thank you for all of those that are taking the time to view the last 3 episodes. It is worth your time. It's Dark Enlightenment, then followed by Dark MAGA, and then we're followed by Palantir and how they've penetrated governments and how powerful they have become. And all of that, how all of that ties together. And when Brian Singh talks about satanic ritual, everything seems to lead back to that for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
So do that. And you can also find me on X, Joan Renee 27. And for those that have donated to Penny, we thank you. And she's going to have one beautiful new smile once she gets enough to get that done.
Yeah, I had a tooth extracted, so I'm still working on that. That was not fun. Still working on that. Hopefully, I will get new teeth sometime in the future. But instead, until then, you're going to have to deal with this smile. And this smile is always going to be on my face because I have people around me that love me, and I have Jesus Christ, who I absolutely adore, who is, I followed his every footsteps, and he's followed mine, and he's been with me every second of every day. So I want to thank you all for watching us. Please like, share, and subscribe. We are out of time, so we are out of here. Shepherd out.
Renee out.
Solar Bee out.
Oh, wow.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for being here.
Goodbye for now from Agent X11, Hollywood dark journalist, a shining light in this darkened world. And don't forget to watch the Awake Nation News 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Eastern on the David Zubik channel on Rumble, followed by our main show, David Zubik's Awake Nation, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday.